praises. All right, first and foremost, I want to give all glory, honor, and reverence to Yahweh. I do so by Hashem Mashiach Yahushua. Salaki. I do so by Hashem Mashiach Yahushua. His name is only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly called Jesus the Christ. It's your brother Yabramya. Back, do a live. Sorry for this lighting. You know, more important than my image is, this word and knowledge of the Bible coming out, right? And those that know I'm on plethora of videos, so you done seen my image, right? And again, it's not about the me or my image. It's more so about the message and the word that we need to worry about. But yeah, let's get started. I'm starting this new series I may do 2 times a month or every other week. Talking about common sense, right? So I want to go into common sense and talking about right how our people can obtain it, and that the fact that our people lack it, right? I'm not worried about everybody in this world. We know most people in this world don't have common sense, like how they say common sense ain't that common, right? But we're worried about our people, worried about maintaining right our people to the status of what God is calling them to be, right? So yeah, so let me start here. Let me go to Proverbs. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 2 and verse 1. I'm reading the NLT. My child, listen to what I say and treasure my commandments. Verse 2. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding, right? Concentrate on understanding. Verse 3. Cry out for insight. This is what we need to do, right? As a people, right? Old people, young people, this is what we need to do. Cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Verse 4. Search for them, talking about understanding and wisdom. Search for them as you would silver. Seek them like a hidden treasure, right? The same way y'all try to wear bust down chains and all the bracelets and right in all type of matter and fashions, right? They try to wear bust down chains, bracelets. That's what the Bible's saying, right? The same way that you will try to shine with your bracelets, the Bible says that wisdom make of your face to shine, right? So search for them, talking about this wisdom and understanding. Search for them as you would silver. Seek them like a hidden treasure. Verse 5. Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, right? Because the previous chapter says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? And great understanding have those that fear God, right? Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, and you will gain knowledge of God. Verse 6. For the Lord grants wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding, right? So the Lord is the one that brings knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to us. We can read as much books as we want, go to whatever cemetery school because it's all really deaf. So that's why I call it cemetery cemetery school. You can go to go holler at the theologians. I mean, you can do all this that you want, but we have to seek true knowledge, right, from the Heavenly Father. All right, I'm gonna read verse 6 again. For the Lord grants wisdom from his mouth, and Salaki, for the Lord grants wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Verse 7. He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest, right? So this is what this series is about. This series is about having common sense, right? I'm gonna start this new series because a lot of our people, we don't have common sense. And quite honestly, I'm talking about those that are in the truth. This is based on what I'm making this. Seeing people that know that they're a Hebrew Israelite and so forth like that, they really lack common sense. And I want to make sure, obviously, first and foremost, that I don't lack within this particular area having common sense. But I see it very common that most of our people, saying that they're claiming to be Hebrew Israelites, don't have common sense, right? So with that being said, right, with that being said, we can look at the people that's in the world, those that claim Christianity or claim all these, oh, they don't lack common sense. We understand that they're in the world, right? So the standard on you should be much higher, right? The tolerance of from you should be much higher than those that's in the world. Makes sense. All right, so let me read verse 7 again. He grants a treasure of common sense, right? The Lord grants common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk in that walk with intelligence, right? So let's go here. Hey, let's go here. Let's right, because the series is on common sense. Right, this series is on common sense, but this one in particular, we're starting off with not interrupting people, right, in the midst of their speech. All right, so we're gonna go to the Book of Wisdom. So, right, and I know a lot of times we joke and say, oh, a lot of times people be, oh, Salakia, oh, pardon me, forgive me, that, before they get ready to cut you off and so forth like that. How about you just hold your tongue, right? And not act like a 5-year-old kid, that you'll lose the train of your thought, right? You'll lose the train of your thought because somebody is talking. So you'll lose your train of thought. You can lose your train of thought, right? You know, because somebody is talking. So you can't do two things. You can't listen and comprehend what they're saying, and also remember the point that you're making. Right now, if they're going to multiple points and so forth like that, you know, I can understand. Let's stay on one topic. Let's stay on one point. Before you switch to another topic, right? And and my point becomes non void. So let me bring the point out. I can understand it from that perspective. But what I see too much in the world, and again with knowing Hebrew Israelites, is that they don't have patience, right? And the Bible says that we need to have the patience of the saints, right? So let me read this. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 11, and I'm gonna read verse 7 in the GNT. Before you start criticizing, get your facts straight. Right? A lot of times that's what people do. Oh, you're this, you're that, you know, this and that, A, B, and C. Get your facts straight, right? First. First, bro. Right? Get your facts straight. You don't even have understanding of the whole matter. And you will just literally say things out your mouth, right? That you will basically be having to walk back because Sluggy, because you don't you know view the whole matter fully. You don't study to show yourself approved, right? You're not trying to understand the whole matter, right? you know so this is why you interrupt, right? This is the book of Sirach, chapter 7 and verse Salaki, chapter 11 and verse 7 in the GNC. Before you start criticizing, get your facts straight and think the matter through. Don't interrupt while someone is speaking, right? And a lot of times people think, oh, well, my voice is louder, right? I'm talking louder than you. I'm more boastful than you. I raise my voice louder than you can. So by default, I gotta be right, right? Everybody will look at me, as if I'm spitting straight facts because I'm elevating my voice higher than you, right? What does that matter? Like again, all these are steps that really, quite honestly, women and children take, in arguments and in debates, right? And you see Hebrew Israelites take this tactic all the time. Now, again, let's not be stupid. We're not saying, oh, well, it's my platform. Like, I set up here, so I'm not going to let them just dominate and speak. I can understand that, right? Because if you want to teach or set up your platform, right? I done said it many a times, right? How about you go across the street and you set up your platform, right? Don't try to, build off of our platform. I can like, from that aspect, I could see that. But right, in Israel, and again, this practice in Israelites, it's just a thought process that you can just interrupt people while they're speaking, and that's not a problem, right? That's not wisdom, right? And you know, I'm gonna show too that a lot of y'all dudes is hypocrites, because you wouldn't want that done to you. You wouldn't want that done to you, but you don't mind interrupting somebody. All right, let me read it again. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 11 and verse 7 in the GNT. Before you start criticizing, get your facts straight and think the matter through. Don't interrupt while someone is speaking. Hear what he or she hear what he has to say before you answer, right, brothers and sisters? Right, we gotta listen to our people, man. Hear them through, right? Like, let's listen through, right? Let's listen through the whole matter of what they're talking about, right, on this particular topic. And just because we elevate ourselves, just because we elevate our voice, again, it doesn't mean that you're right. Because you get louder, than somebody, right? So that by default means that you're right, to the naked eye, to those that's standing by, that means that you're right. No, that doesn't mean that. um but this is what I come to find out. Let me get Proverbs. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 12 and verse 15 in the GNT, right? Stupid people always think they are right? I come to find this out. Right? A lot of times people interrupt people because they think that they're right, right? They think that you are speaking nonsense. So just because of that, right? I'm gonna elevate my voice. I'm gonna speak over you, because I just know I'm right, right? And quite honestly, I'm gonna be honest. Even teaching, brother's been doing this for a certain amount of time, and stuff like that. Obviously, not trying to brag on that, but I started understanding, like, I need to step back a little bit of my energy right now. Obviously, of course, you want to still be austere, right? And you still want to be right, right, a man, right? But right, I step back the level of aggression, even when it comes to heathens, to an extent, right? I'll meet the aggression with aggression, right? The guy said, "Oh, get over slavery," right? Even when we're trying to talk about injustice that's done to all people, and I start talking about the injustice done to my people, and he walks away from me and says, "Get over it. It's in the past." So yeah, I met his aggression, right, and I met his ignorance. I met it with that type of energy, right? That's what I did. That's a heathen. But even when dealing with heathens, I understand too that the message comes across a lot better. Not per se for them, but for our people, right? We're recording, like now I'm trying to do this live, go live or whatnot like that. So even we pre-record and set up videos, this goes out to distant cities, distant states, distant countries, right? So our people that are watching, we still want to show that we have decorum. We want to show that we have patience. We want to show that we're not just what they try to say about us, that we're not just animals, right? That we can actually be calm in hostile environment. And a lot of times our people aren't calm in hostile environments. Again, I'm talking about Hebrew Israelites, right? I mean, wearing fringes. And again, like I stated before, a lot of times, why people will interrupt people while they speak is because because a lot of times they feel that they have all the facts, right? But like Wes said, you don't have all the facts, Sway. You really don't, right? Because if you did, you would be, a lot of times people would be carrying themselves right to a certain way. But a lot of times niggas don't, just being quite honest. But this is why they have no problem interrupting people in the midst of they speak, and especially their own people, right? Let's just home in on that, right? Especially their own. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 12, verse 15 in GNT. Stupid people always think they are right. Wise people listen to advice. So a lot of times when you feel that you're right within a conversation, right? You know what? Why do I need to hear them through? I'm right. I know what I'm talking about. Right? They don't know what they're talking about, man. So that since they don't know what they're talking about, right? And since I'm right, you see that, right? Since I'm right, you know, hey, I'm just going to interrupt them and raise my voice and talk much more louder than them so everyone can know who's right and who's wrong. That's why we see the book of Proverbs say stupid people always think they're right, right? Because listen, none of us is right all the time. Let's just be honest, man. We're not. We're going to get some of our facts wrong. Sometimes we're going to mispronounce a word in this bastard, language, right? So we're going to mispronounce a word here or there. You know, we're going to, we may have fact checked something, but that things that we may have fact checked wasn't true fact, right? Sometimes that can happen, right? So, right, somebody that's wise understands that they're not going to be right all the time, but a stupid ass person will perceive themselves to be right even when they're wrong. Like they will literally argue for the sake of arguing, not for the sake for the truth to be elevated, right? But they will argue just because their spirit has a contentious spirit to want to go back and forth and argue, right, and be abrasive and aggressive, right, and then they will go and use the guidelines of I'm a man, right. I even heard brothers say I'm a Judite, like I'm a Judite, so I'm supposed to be aggressive, I'm supposed to be angry, but the most humblest Judite to ever exist was Hamashiach, right, or who the world called Christ, right. So he was the most humblest amongst all Judah, according to what the Bible say, right, and he's a standard on what we're supposed to be, right. So listen, don't try to confuse your nationality or your tribe with being a nigga, right? And I'm just using the term that white people try to use, as we know that that's not the definition, but as being ignorant, right? But don't confuse being a nigga with your tribe, right? Don't do that, right? Because you won't be acting like the Messiah. Let me go here. All right. Speaking of the Messiah, right? Speaking of the Messiah, Salakia. Right, speaking of the Messiah, let me go here. Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12. It's the book of Matthew chapter 7 and verse 12. I'm reading the NLT. Do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. So a lot of times people interrupt people, they speak over them, but do you want to be interrupted? Do you want to be belittled? Do you want to have somebody try to elevate their voice above you when you're trying to talk to them and deal with them as a brother? Of course not. Most people will be, of course not. I don't want that to occur to me. But you don't mind doing that to them. That makes you a hypocrite. And you're breaking the laws of God. Why? Let me go here. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18 and verse 18. KJV, I will raise him up a prophet from among the brethren, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak unto them all that I shall command. And we know that this is Christ, right? Verse 19, And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto the words which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him, it of him, talking about your life, right? So it's a commandment what Christ is saying. And Hebrew Israelites, I come to see that they value so much, which they should. Prophecy. The Revelation says the spirit of Christ is prophecy. You gotta know the prophecies, right? They will value that so to such a level, and a high level. Not saying that you shouldn't value prophecy. Let's not be stupid, but they will overlook, you know, basic common sense, basic things that Christ teaches our people, right? Let me read it again. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 7, and verse 12 in the NLT. Do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. So if you don't mind being interrupted, if you don't mind having your brother cut you off, if you don't mind having your brother start yelling at you in the midst of a civil conversation, if you don't mind that, then then by all means be a jackass, right? So I can for the language, right? But by all means be a donkey. You see that? Right? Go do that, right? But we know that this is not the case, because a lot of times, if y'all are interrupted, if y'all are talked over or talked down to, you get aggressive, you get mad, you get angry, right? Because I'm not going to allow that to happen to me. So you're going to allow yourself to do that to your brother, right? I'm not going to allow no one to treat me that way. And you're weak if you allow them to treat you that way. So I guess Christ was weak. Right, I guess Christ was weak, right? But all that he took from Israel, all the abuse, verbal abuse, disrespect, right? I guess he was weak if you want to go with that aspect, And he was called an austere man. So y'all better look up what austere means, right? Verse 12: do to others whatever you would like them to do to you. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets, right? So this was Salaki. So this is what's taught in the law, right? There's no way around it. I know people, this, that's not a law. That's wisdom. That's like, and I understand, you know, wisdom can be for the benefit of our understanding, give us guidance in life, right? But it's not necessarily a law, right? But a lot of times you lack wisdom and you lack common sense, right? Because you elevate a lot of times some laws and kind of tuck and put to the side other laws, right? So let me go here. Yeah, let me go here. Let me go to Corinthians. All right. I'm gonna try to keep these kind of short because it's more so about them just hitting a particular message and just letting common sense. Me and the brother, we on the Living Water page, we go live on Tuesday, drop videos, so this Sunday on Sunday, so forth like that. But come to do extra work. It's not a problem to do extra work. Sometimes people are scared. They don't mind raising their voice and interrupting you. Israelites don't mind raising their voice and interrupting you. But when it comes to doing some extra work for God, hold up now. I gotta get all my ducks in a row. I gotta get all the points straight. I gotta do this. I gotta do A, B, and C. Right. So you gotta do all this and that. But you don't have time to do any extra work. And all praises. This is before camp. This is the book of First Corinthians. This is the book of First Corinthians, chapter 13 and verse 4. I'm reading the NLT. This is the book of First Corinthians, chapter 13 and verse 4 in the NLT. Love is patience, kind, and not jealousy. Right. So we're talking about love. Right. So the brother Paul is going to go into a lot of factors of love and what love should pertain and what love should not pertain, right? Verse 4, love is patience and kind, right? We should have patience and kindness for our people. Now, obviously, sometimes patience can run thin. We understand that, right? I don't understand why Israelites think because I read this Bible and I elevate things that Christ, well, obviously this is Paul's writing, but that Christ, and that's echoed in the Bible so much about patience and humility. People either think A, you're weak, or two, some type of softness about you. And it's kind of like befuddling in a way, because these same people you will hold to such high esteem, these brothers in the Bible, you will hold them to high esteem, but a brother that you walk with will try to elevate the same teachings and same things that they said, and it's like, hold up, man, it's kind of weak, man. I mean, it's kind of weak, man. It's just kind of amazing to me, but I digress. Verse 4, love is patience and kind. Love is not jealousy or boastful or pride. These are things that love, right, should not pertain to love. Verse 5, right, it's talking about what is not pertaining to love, or rude, or being rude, right? Interrupting a brother or a sister, right? Because sisters do it all the time too. Interrupting a brother or sister before they have uh you know a time to land their plane, or listen, I seen brothers interrupt me, just talking about me, and I only said three or maybe four words. They just started interrupting me in the midst of me just talking. But at the same time, I love you. Habakah, I love you, man. I love you. But I'm just always right more than you. Right. So you see, Paul is saying that love is not rude, man. It's not. It shouldn't be rude. You shouldn't be ignorant, man. Right. Love is not rude. Right. It does not demand its own way. It is not intolerable. Man, I can't let this nigga just keep talking, man. Not when I'm here with all these smarts. Right. I'm here and I got all this wisdom, man. And I'm gonna let him just talk to me, this low level dude. Yeah, he my brother, he an Israelite and all that, but he ain't got the smarts that I got. Right? I ain't gotta listen to him like that, man. Right? So I don't mind interrupting him. I don't mind Salakia. Let me speak. Right? But then when you start speaking, right, everybody's supposed to stop talking and give you full attention, give you the full floor. Right? This is why Christ kept saying, a bunch of hypocrites, man. Right? Just because you wear fringes and shalom, and I mean, it's a whole lot of hypocrisy that's in this community, right? And we are quick to be like, you, you're a hypocrite, you're a hypocrite. How about we look at ourselves? How about we start with correcting ourselves, right? Start making sure that we don't have this particular spirit, right? That's why I started off the video by saying I want to make sure, right, that these particular spirits are not involved in me, right? I want to make sure part of even starting this series is that I want to make sure that I have common sense, because in reading the Bible, I was seeing in multiple incidents that the Bible uplifts having common sense. And while I'm reading these multiple topics of having common sense, I come to see that a lot of Israelites don't have common sense, man. It is what it is, right? So again, right, these are the things that love should not be, right? Or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not intolerable. Right? I can't tolerate this brother or sister, man. I can't, man. You know, he's been talking for 14 seconds, man. And I'm just going to interrupt him. I'm just going to raise my voice and talk. I'm just going to I'm just gonna cut him off, man. Right? Because he doesn't have the right to be speaking, right? While I'm around and I'm just so wise and smart. I've been in this walk, a whole 5 months, a whole 2 years more than you. So I have the authority, right? I have the authority to talk over you. And that's hypocrisy in itself, because Christ was only in his 30s and he was correcting brothers that was much older than him. So by definition, they would have been in the walk, right? Following the commandments, right? Following the commandments. So they would be on that walk, right? So let me continue. Matter of fact, let me wrap this up. All right. So we see love is not rude. It does not demand its own way. Um, it is not intolerable, and it right is not intolerable, right? And it keeps no record of being wrong. Slovakia. And it keeps no record of being wrong. Right. So let me wrap these up. Oh man. Wow, well, wow, we. Yeah, let me wrap this up. Let me go to these two and then this. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 10 and verse. Slovakia. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 10 and verse 21 in the NLT. Or the book of Proverbs, chapter 10 and verse 21 in the NLT. The words of the godly encourage many, but fools are destroyed by their lack of common sense, man. Right? Let me read it again. This book of Proverbs, chapter 10 and verse 21 in the NLT. The words of the godly encourage many, but fools are destroyed by their lack of common sense. Right? So we need this common sense, Israel. Right? We need to know prophecy. We have to teach prophecy to our people, the things that's aligning, with the society. What our live class on Tuesday, Lord will try to go in, talk about the races, Moabites in our community, going to the blackout, going to the tsunami in China, going to some other topics. We talk about prophecy, but we got to talk about common sense, right? I just I don't see brothers doing that. So all praises the Lord put in my spirit, right, to push me to do this, and all praises too. Before bringing this last verse and ending this, a lot of things was working against me. To be quite honest, I'm not as internet or tech savvy as probably the next person. So a lot of things were working against me to set this live and to even have this go on, right? So it may be easily understood to somebody else, but it was a little tedious and hard for me. But all praises to the Lord, I didn't give up. Because a lot of times it's very easy to give up and just be, hey, I'm gonna make camp. Hey, I made camp the other day. Hey, I'm releasing videos. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing so. A lot of times it's very easy to just be, you know what? I don't need to do this. Right? I'm doing enough for the Lord. I'm doing all right for the Lord. Right? So it's always easy to do this, and I give all praises to the Heavenly Father for not putting that in my spirit. Like, do I feel that I be being burdened a lot? Yes. I mean, I even talked to some brothers about it, but I mean, like, it is what it is. Right? So this truth and just life in general is not for the weak. Right? Let me wrap this up. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 3 and verse 21. Right, it's the book of Proverbs, chapter 3 and verse 21. I'm gonna read it in the NLT. My child, don't lose sight of common sense, right? Discernment and Slakia and discernment, hang on to them, right? Brothers and sisters, don't lose this, don't lose discernment, don't lose sight of common sense, man. Right? Because we see that this world doesn't obtain and have a whole lot of common sense. So us as being children of the light, we need, right? We need to establish and show common sense on our day-to-day walk in life. And read again. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 3 and verse 21 in the NLT. My child, don't lose sight of common sense and discernment. Hang on to them. Right, all praise to the Heavenly Father. Right, and I want to give all glory, honor, and reverence to Yahweh, right, who given me strength, right, to do what I need to do, even though sometimes, physically I be hurting, um, mentally, things, could kind of weigh on me mentally, right, but you know, as long as I don't break and I don't falter, I'm gonna keep pushing and doing the will of the Lord. And a lot of times doing doing these sit downs, doing the live class, doing these videos, um, it just helps to give me uh, you know, a relief, so to say. Like some brothers go to the gym, they do that. This is a level of relief for me, right? So if I say anything wrong, it definitely was the flesh, right? Couldn't have been the spirit. May the Heavenly Father, love and mercy truly endure forever for Israel and Israel only, as it said in the Holy Scriptures. Till the next time, I say Shalom, right? And Mawaf Lababal.